Let's get right to it, Brando. These matchups, the very first one out of the gates, it's Xander Tonifino against Jason Day and Ben On. What do you think?
Look, Ben On's playing the best golf of his life. Just in general, though, when I look at what Captain Weir has done, he's put out some really impassioned players in those first three matchups on his side. Day and certainly Ben On, Adam Scott, Min-Woo Lee, Tom Kim. So you got a lot of passion in those first three groups.
And then in number two, it's Colin Morikawa, Sahith Theegala against a couple of Australians, Adam Scott and Min-Woo Lee. Paulie, how do you see this one?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Adam would have picked Min-Woo as a potential partner. I know they've played a number of practice rounds together this year, and obviously both Australian and, you know, Scotty being the father figure there to the incredible talent that Min-Woo Lee is. He really is a very raw talent and a good one. And then on the other side, obviously, Theegala is another talent. With the steady Eddie that Morikawa is, particularly with the form that he's shown second half of the season. So a good matchup there. You would have to fancy the Americans in it, but then you'd fancy Americans in most games.
Just curious, as they sat down, Jim Furyk, defending champion United States, had the option to pick first or defer. He elected to defer the pick to Mike Weir. What did you think of that move?
I was surprised.
Why?
I think psychologically it's a little bit of a, well, you go first, and you know, I want to get in the front foot, Rich. I want to go at him. You know, it's like, you know, if you're playing golf and I'm playing against Brandel, and I have the honour, and I go, you know what, Brandel, why don't you go first? You know, I think having the honour is an advantage, and look forward. But look, I don't know enough about the tactics of President's Cup, because we don't do this in Ryder Cup. We put in envelopes from both sides. But yeah, I like the psychological battle in these teams, Rich. And for me, you know, conceding advantage and conceding the first pick is just a little bit of, I'm not so sure what's going on here. I just want to wait and see and react. I don't like to be reactive. I want to be front foot.
I do like putting Jason Day out in that very first match. He has been okay in 4 balls, 3, 4, and 1 all time in 4 previous appearances, but on the whole has not really provided the spark that the international team would need from a player of his stature.
He hasn't, but he's talked about that in the lead-up to the matches this week, saying in the past he maybe didn't have the fire that he needed. But, you know, I think over the last 2, 3 President's Cups, and the players on the international side have certainly been talking a lot about this, that they've been working on building some team unity and sort of galvanizing support around that symbol. So I really think Jason Day has taken on a leadership role more as it relates to this President's Cup.
All right, match number 3 is world number 1, Scotty Scheffler. He is paired with Russell Henley. They'll take on Sungjae Im and Tom Kim. What do you think of this, Brandel?
You know, there's a little surprise for me that Scotty Scheffler and Henley are matched up. You know, he has the luxuries of just picking amongst great player after great player. I think this is going to be the most compelling match.
Why?
Well, just because Sungjae Im and Tom Kim are the best team out there on the international side. You know, when you look at their birdie output, when you look at their world rank, when you look at the differential and various other statistical categories, I think that's going to be the most compelling match out there. Scotty Scheffler with Henley, at least, you know, 4 balls is about birdie output, especially as this golf course is so soft. Scotty Scheffler, you know, look, I mean, Henley is an unbelievable player, top 20 player in the world. It just seemed to me that he's more, I think, comfortable, or would be more comfortable in the foursomes, and you'd put Scotty Scheffler out there with somebody who's got a higher birdie output. Russell Henley is 93rd in birdie average. He's amongst the lowest on that team in birdie output.
Paul, you lobbied for keeping Sam Burns together with Scotty Scheffler, though to this point they haven't had a whole lot of success, arguing that it's still a small sample size, relatively speaking, for 2 guys in their 20s. What do you think of putting Scheffler with Henley?
Well, my point about keeping those 2 together, Burns and Scheffler, was more to do with the foursomes, the alternate shot, because the golf course is suited to both of their skill set, Rich. So I don't mind breaking it up. I mean, you know, you've got to play everybody. As I said last night, the captain is available for information and statistics that we're not here. We're looking at it in a lot more broad sense. But yeah, I don't mind that. I mean, Henley's a hell of a player. He's had a great season. He's a really good, solid ball striker. He's put it a lot better this year. And you know, you put him with the world's best player, and I think anybody, even Brandel, will probably win with Scotty Scheffler.
You've rolled out Paulie, you've rolled out lineups as the winning captain in 2014, the Ryder Cup for Europe. Been in a lot of back rooms as a vice captain. So, what's the thinking behind Xander out first with Tony Finau and putting Scotty Scheffler in the 3-hole?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you personally, just from my experience, your best player putting out number 1. It's a bit like I'm talking about the American team this week, Rich. You have nowhere to go as the number 1 player but win. So you're putting even more pressure on a guy who's already got a lot of expectation within the team. Now, he can handle that expectation individually, but in a team, and all his teammates are looking at him to win, and then you layer on it by putting him out number 1 in the lead game. I love that pairing at number 1 for America. I think that's incredibly strong.
Why?
Oh, I mean, ahead of a golfers, that's why. I mean, Xander has shown this year that he's got tougher as the season has gone on, and the validation of success in major championships, this guy's become tougher mentally than he's ever been before. And I think Tony is such a fabulous player anyway, an easygoing, a likable guy everybody likes to play with. I think that's a very, very strong pairing. So I think putting in Scotty at number 3, it's not hiding him, it's kind of protecting him. The main thing you want from your top player, like I said last night, is a high return on percentage. And it doesn't mean to have the ego of going out number 1 in every game to win that. It doesn't matter where they play in it. As long as they produce 3.5 points out of 5, that's what the captain will be looking for his top player.
What's the psychological impact on a team if you take down world number 1, as Sung Jae and Tom Kim will try to do tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes that happens. It could happen. The quality of players on both teams here, as we know, and the dynamic of team that goes into it, I think it's a bit of certainly it's an edge to the internationals that takes down Scotty Scheffler, but it's not going to, win or lose. It's certainly something in their favour, but it's not a huge thing, but it is an important thing.
Brandon, what'd you make of the pairing in match number 4? Wyndham Clark and Keegan Bradley against Taylor Pendrith, who will be the first Canadian we see in the 4-hole alongside Christian Bezuidenhout.
Look, I mean, Pendrith has, really upped his game this year. Just, maybe he didn't result in victories, but just in terms of overall his game, he's one of the strongest players on that international squad. He and Christian Bezuidenhout, look, I mean, they're hoping for, maybe they saw something in these practice rounds. They're hoping for a little fire right there, but they're up against a very tough duo in Keegan Bradley in Wyndham Clark. But look, just in general, if I'm talking about what happened, this was a big surprise today. Instead of just looking at these, this was a big surprise. Every single match out there is a new recipe. It's a new match. Each one of these captains went to the drawing board. They didn't go out there with Xander Schauffele and Patrick Cantley. They didn't go out there with Scotty Scheffler and Sam Burns. They didn't go out there with Hideki Matsuyama and Adam Scott. So every single by the way, that duo of Hideki Matsuyama and Adam Scott is the second most played team in the history of the international. So both of these captains are looking for new fire, new matches, and a new way to progress to the President's Cup.
Are you surprised, Paul, that they waited to the 4th match to put out their first Canadian on the international side?
Not overly so. Not overly so. But there is, and we talk about it later in the show, I want to make a big point about the importance of the home crowd. And that Canadian crowd is going to be a hugely important part this week. But it's not coming out of the blocks on the first day and getting them all rah, rah, rah. I mean, you slowly move into it and you let momentum build. It's more important about getting the matchups right and coming out of this session with 2.5 points. The internationals come out of here with a 3-2 loss. They got a problem. They've already got a mountain to climb. And I really do feel that from the first session, they need to get something on America, because if you let America, I'm a great believer in match play, your opponent plays as good as you let them. And if you let this opponent play, if internationals let this opponent play to the capability and quality they do, with a little bit of freedom and a little bit of confidence, America could run off to victory. So it's important coming out of the blocks that they're held very tightly by the internationals. So this first session is really important, and it's more important about having good players out there in pairings so that you can get to at least 2.5 points in this first session.
But they definitely need the crowd involved, and that's why I think when I look at that, they've put out passion first and home country advantage at the last 2 matches. When you look at Corey Connors and Pendrith in those last 2, so they can end on a high note, so they can go home and sleep on a high note and feel like the crowd's involved, and that'll buoy them forward to Friday.
Drill down on that 5th match, Cantley and Burns against Matsuyama and another Canadian, Corey Connors.
Look, I mean, Sam Burns has got the second most birdie output on the PGA Tour. I mean, he's just exceptional. And look, Patrick Cantlay, even though he started slowly this year, has played well as of late. He was third at the U.S. Open, the Tour Championship, sort of middle of the pack right there. But again, really strong team. At the beginning of the year, Patrick Cantlay was sort of in the doldrums, sort of playing mediocre golf, but he's turned things around. Hideki Matsuyama, as cold and as wet as it's going to be tomorrow, you kind of have to worry about how's his back going to hold up. I'm sure him out last has something to do with that, so they're going to see how he feels, and maybe we'll see Siwoo Kim or Hughes pop in there.
Paulie, just a quick glance at the 5 matches. You like the internationals even just a little bit in which of the 5 matches, if you take a peek?
Oh, boy. It's so hard to pick. I mean, these are sprints, remember. 18-hole matches come out of the blocks. You can, we had an amazing stat that I unearthed just before the 2014 Ryder Cup team from my data team. And it was the team that was 1 up after 6, won or half 80% of the time. So those first 6 holes are essential coming out of the blocks in these sprint that 18-hole matches are. So if I'm going to pick anybody here, I mean, that I really like, oh boy. You look at them in the context of who they're playing against.
Match 2? I mean, Scott and Min Woo.
I think
match
Min
3
Woo has got the potential to be the Tom Kim of this President's Cup and just be electric. I think he's a very emotional, high-octane guy who will go to another level. He's got a phenomenal game. Talk about talent in the sport. There's not many, and there's only a handful, if that I would put in the same category of young players that have got anywhere near the talent of Min Woo. This guy is ready to explode in terms of the potential that he has. And sitting on the shoulder of somebody like Adam Scott could well be something that will ignite him.
You didn't sell the internationals with passion right there. I'm looking.
I want to get stuck in. I want to start.
Brando,
I love these team events.
Look, quickly, you like him in any of the 5 matches?
I
and
do.
So which ones?
I like Tom Kim and Sung Jae Im. I really do. Again, I'm surprised at the Scotty Scheffler Henley pick. I thought Henley would be more suited towards the foursomes, and you'd put somebody out there with a higher birdie output to pair with Scotty Scheffler.